It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Belmont Abbey head women's soccer coach, Mike Lynch. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brandon. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Can you talk about how you got started in college coaching?
Yeah, it's a long, windy path, but full of fun stuff. I played at Air Force, and right after I graduated from Air Force, I immediately got into coaching. I was because my first assignment in the military was actually back at my high school, the same town as my high school. So I knew the local soccer scene. I immediately connected and got a U19 boys team. That next fall, I was the assistant high school coach, and then I got involved in ODP. And so, and then of course, I kept in touch with my college coach, Lou Sagastume, and just asking him, how do you do this? How do you make this transition from playing to coaching? And so that connection, we stayed in touch, and within, let's say, I was at my first assignment for almost 5 years, so 4.5 years. And then Louis brought me back on the staff at Air Force, and then that's how it got me going.
Can you talk about, of course, coaching at your alma mater, Air Force, and how that was?
Yeah, I tell you, it was great. It's much different. It's very different to coach there than it is to be a cadet there. You can imagine the service academy life. It was fantastic, and I think it really helped me, put me on a path for the rest of my professional career. But when you're on staff, it's different, and you get a chance to really pour into your cadets. And again, to coach under Louis was fantastic. I consider him still one of the brightest soccer minds in the U.S. And then to be back on his staff was a thrill, and that really put me on a trajectory. It allowed me at Air Force to I took all my coaching education there, and so when you're at a school where they'll support your professional development like that, that was a real treat. And so I was able to get all my licensing done, and I was a PE instructor. I was managing and directing a logistics support division, so I was getting good management experience as well as being an assistant soccer coach. And at that time, we had a varsity and a JV. So I was the assistant varsity, and I was the head coach of the JV team. And at that time, again, we had a really strong league that we could play in as a JV team in Colorado, playing all the schools that didn't sponsor men's soccer, like University of Colorado and Colorado State, and all those schools. And so, I think the chance to be a head coach while you're an assistant is just invaluable because it's very, very different. But yeah, it was a great experience.
Can you talk about getting your first head coach job at Nebraska Wesleyan University?
Yeah, so at Nebraska Wesleyan, that was when I actually returned to coaching. And so, my first when I came back on staff at Air Force, and then I became the head coach at Truman State, and that was again another good school, good students, good team. I mean, it was awesome. And then for a variety of reasons, I decided to go into the professional business world out of that. Most of all was our family was starting to grow, and I was starting to feel the pinch of providing for my family. So, but anyway, I did that for the next 14 years while I was coaching club ball and ODP on the side. And then Nebraska Wesleyan was my ticket to get back into full-time coaching. And so that time at Pfizer I was actually with Pfizer Pharmaceuticals as one of their sales managers. And it was invaluable to me as far as my development, but I just missed the game immensely. I can't tell you how much I missed it. Every day I missed it. And so, and coaching club teams and coaching ODP, I was enjoying that, and I was really happy I could still do that, but I really wanted to get back on the college sidelines. So in 2009, Nebraska Wesleyan opened up, and they're Division III, and both their men's and women's kind of came open at the same time. So I approached the athletic director, Ira Zeff, and I said, look, can you take a chance on me and let me do both? Because they were trying to hire a part-time coach for both positions, for each one. And I said, look, can we combine these? And I'll just do both. And And he said, sure, let's do it. And so that got me back into college coaching, which I was so happy to be back in. And it also put me in where now I'm on both sides. I'm coaching men because most of my experience had been on the men's side prior to that. And I was coaching women. So now I had an avenue to go either direction to continue in college. And so Belmont Abbey came after that, and our focus now singularly on the women. But I was really, really lucky. I owe a lot to Ira Zeff, the athletic director there, for the opportunity to get back in.
Can you talk about, of course, making the transition from Nebraska Wesleyan to Belmont Abbey?
In many aspects, they were very similar. In other aspects, they were different. First thing that was really different was the weather. As you can imagine, Nebraska has got great people. We loved our time in Nebraska, but the weather is not the best. It's hotter than hot and colder than cold and windy every day. So when I came to the Carolinas, the weather is fairly temperate. There's a couple hot months, but for the most part, it's really nice and it doesn't get that cold in the winter. But the biggest difference was no wind. And as a soccer coach, you may not think that wind is a bummer, but oh my gosh, when you have to deal with it every day, where the balls are just blowing across the field and people can't hear you, it's crazy. And so, but you do, because that's what that's where you are, and so you handle it. But the first couple of years at Belmont Abbey, I would walk out to the field and I would just go, ladies, this is such a beautiful day, and they look at me like I was crazy. I'd say there's no wind. We can actually have a productive training session. So, but it was a great. It was so the similarities were Nebraska Wesleyan, even though it is private, but it's very academic, and so really student academic oriented players. They were there because they really wanted to get a good education, and same thing with Belmont Abbey. The soccer players at Nebraska Wesleyan were serious soccer players. Same thing at Belmont Abbey. So the transition was pretty easy. And then the Nebraska Wesleyan is a Methodist affiliated university, and Belmont Abbey is a Catholic university. So they're both had faith roots. And Belmont Abbey, the opportunity to coach here at the Abbey has been fantastic because if as coaches we're trying to develop the mind, body, and spirit, if you will, do they know the techniques and tactics and physical part? Do they have the mental side of it, where their confidence and composure and all that? And now, do you have their heart? Do you have their heart where they really want to play for each other? And so I'm at an institution where that's the expectation. And I tell you, it doesn't get any better than that.
Can you talk about, of course, coaching from a Division I to a Division II level?
Yeah, I've had the privilege of, I was the assistant at Division I, head coach on both the men's and women's side on Division II, and I was a head coach on Division III, men's and women's. And then my Division III team, Nebraska Wesleyan, we played in an NAIA conference. So at every college division, I've coached at it. And I tell you, there's so much more in common than there is difference. The soccer is all good at all the levels, all the different divisions. They're all good. The players want to get better. And so it's pretty much the environment I feel is the same. The top, to me, it goes back to is how competitive is your program? How focused is your program? Because the top teams in Division I, II, and III NAI, the teams that are competing for the national championship, they're unbelievably good. Doesn't matter the division. Now, does that mean that the Division II or III or NAI champion is going to beat the Division I champion? Probably not. But if you play 10 times, they could beat them once, maybe even twice. Maybe that's even a stretch. But if you talk about the top 20, if you're talking about 19, 20, or through 30, and you're talking about the national champion in Division II, Division III, NAI, again, you'll see that those teams can compete. And so that's the beauty of it. And really, it's just finding, those players when they're looking for a home, is just find a place where you can play, find a place where you can thrive, and don't worry about the division, because the soccer is all good. Competitive teams in each division are all good.
Can you talk about, of course, coaching in the Conference Carolina with Mount Olive, Barton, and UNC Pembroke in it?
Yeah, so I tell you, Conference Carolina is it's a great conference to be a part of for a bunch of reasons. The teams are good. The teams you just mentioned, Mount Olive, Barton, I think you mentioned UNC Pembroke. They're just coming into our conference this year. Francis Marion they're coming in from the Peach Belt. And so that's exciting. And, we just lost Limestone and they were a top program for a while. Queens was in our conference. So they're in these sister conferences. When you sit in the Southeast, the South Atlantic, the Peach Belt, and the Conference Carolinas, these are the three conferences that make up, for the most part, the Southeast region. And they're all within, for the most part, there's a few exceptions, they're all within 4 or 5 hours of drive, and most of them within 2 hours, especially within Conference Carolinas. So we're able to get to our opponent, come home, study in your room, sleep in your own bed. And, and you think that isn't that much of an advantage. To me, it's huge. When you're traveling, like Division III has some very large conferences. Sometimes it's a quarter of the United States. Division I has some conferences that are half of the United States. And so when you're spending a good proportion of your time traveling and sitting and waiting in airports and getting on buses and all that, and that's exciting too, it's different, but it also, there's a price, there's a consequence, and it's really hard, for their study time, for their rest, their recovery. And so we know that we can train every day, we can go compete, get to our place, get back, and again, like I said, study in our own room and sleep in our own bed.
Can you talk about the culture that you have built at the Abbey?
I tell you, I never like to overpromise and underdeliver, but when we talk to our recruits, we feel like, we've tried to create an environment that is really special for our players to thrive. It's really based on, it's based on love. If you think of, the two greatest commandments, love your God with all your heart. And the second one, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And so, we operate on the philosophy of, if the coaches love their players, we really care about them, take care of them, then the players will love each other. And so that's what we've seen. And we're like all college programs where, you're not going to have that every day, but we really try to create that culture. And if you get the culture piece right, the rest of it is pretty easy, because again, they're soccer junkies, they're serious students. And so if we can just get the culture piece right, and we try to, very deliberate and try to work on that every day, it seems to work out. So yeah, we've got, we have players, probably just under half of our team is from all across the United States. We recruit nationally. And, but at the same time, we also know that if we're not getting some of the top players out of our region, especially North Carolina and South Carolina, because we're right on the border, then we're missing out on doing it right. And so we've got really strong relationships with the local soccer clubs, and they feel very good about sending a player to the Abbey. Their players have had good experiences, and so we want to keep that. And so we're very protective of our environment. And so hopefully we can continue to attract and retain top players from around the region. But I tell you, we do great nationally, especially Florida, California, and again, across the country. We've got players from all over, but we've got several from California and Florida. And I tell you, they seem to thrive here at the Abbey. And so we'll continue to look at those places to see if we can continue to get good players.
Can you talk about, of course, during COVID, the women's soccer season got cut short. Can you talk about what y'all plan to accomplish in this upcoming season?
Yeah, so like all the teams, everybody was hit with COVID this fall, and so we had to make our adjustments. We were really lucky, though. Our college administration took the position that we have to learn to live with COVID, because it's not going to go away. And I think we see that this semester. If everybody thought, well, it'll go away by January, it's not. And even with the vaccines, it's not going to go away this spring. It's going to hopefully reduce the numbers, and that kind of stuff. But we have to learn. We can't just stop living. We have to go to class. And so from the get-go, our college president and our athletic director said, we're going to go to class in person, and we're going to practice and compete. And so we just got to figure out how to do that safely. And that's what we did. And so, half the classes are online, half are in person, so, and we then created where people will quarantine, where they will isolate. We had all our testing procedures going, and we had a great fall season. We had a lot of inter squads. We only played 3 outside competitions, but that's 3 more than probably 80 to 90% of the whole country played. And we had 6 inter squads. We broadcasted them live on our live stream. So again, they were able to, their families were able to see them play. Their friends were able to see them play. We didn't have any fans at the games, but we were able to get them on live stream. And so we were just really thrilled. And I think, I know you're familiar with college soccer. We have, there's no preseason in the fall. And so we're normally going into our competitive season with 2.5 weeks of preseason. And so we go into our first couple of games. We haven't talked about corner kicks yet. We haven't talked about set pieces. We've barely talked about, what position everybody's playing. Now we've had an entire fall semester. And so we are so excited about where we are starting this spring. And so the Conference Carolinas, and I think they were really smart in the way they approached this. They said, look, we're going to play, everybody's going to play, like they divide the conference in half. You're going to play all those people plus 2 on the other half. And that's going to create your 7 games. And then we're going to create this little World Cup group play for postseason. And we're going to have these 4 groups and then the 3 teams in each group. And you're going to have a little play in. The winner of each group goes right to the semifinals. And so we are just jazzed to get going. The girls are back on campus. First classes are today. They were back this weekend. We're allowed to start practice on Friday. And so we're just hungry and excited and just can't wait to go and play those games. The other thing, Brandon, that's different about this spring season that we've had compared to our normal fall season is because of the reduced number of games, we're only playing 1 game per week. And that doesn't seem like a lot because normally it's 2 games a week. And early in the season, sometimes it's even 3. But that doesn't seem like a big deal. It's a huge deal because we now get to practice. We get to train. Because normally when you have 2 games a week, let's say you play on Saturday. So Sunday's a recovery day. Monday, you get to train. Tuesday's a light day. Wednesday, you play. Thursday's a recovery day. Friday's a light day. Saturday, you play. So there's 1 training day in the entire week that you can really, get some stuff done. Now, so now we're playing really once a week. So we're playing on either Friday, Saturday, or Monday of each week. And we're getting 2 to 3 training days in. So not only do we have a fall preseason, we now have time in the week to continue teaching, to tweak some things from the last game, see if we can get better on these, particular areas. So again, you think of the silver lining in COVID, and again, it's been tragic. What's happened to people's families, where they've had sickness and death and that kind of stuff. It's not taking it lightly, but at the same time, it's been a great opportunity for us to rethink how we're doing our training and actually, I think, have probably one of the best springs we've ever had.
Can you talk about, of course, in the recruitment process with the extended deadline? How difficult was that?
With the extended deadline as far as the NCAA and
Yes.
Yeah, so it's mostly affected Division I schools the greatest because the Division I schools are still in a dead period, I think, until April 15th, I believe. And so Division II, we have not been in a dead period, and we haven't been in that since last summer. I mean, it's been I want to say even early in summer is when we went to a quiet period, and I think I personally believe it's absolutely egregious what these class of 2021 and class of 2022, they've been trying. They want to play college soccer. How do you embrace the process when in Division I, you're not even allowed to visit their school and meet with the coach? I mean, I'm trying to figure out what's the science behind that. And so it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. They can visit the school, but you can't meet with the coach. I mean, that just makes no sense. So these players are now having to make a Division I playing decision. They haven't met the staff in person. They haven't met the team, most likely, spent any time with the people that are now going to be part of their soccer family. I don't understand why they're doing this. And I really feel for the class of 21 and 22 because it's just, they're not able to, I think, get a fair recruiting process. As far as Division II and Division III and NAI, we pretty much are operating as normal. And, it's really basically the same as what we're doing right now. And so, but you can imagine we're looking for top players that have Division I opportunities, and they don't know what to say to us because they don't know what their really Division I recruiting status is. So they don't know if, well, I could go to the Belmont Abbey or I could go to this, mid-major Division I school, but I don't know how interested they are because, other than they're just, they're talking on emails and on the phone, but I mean, it's really unfortunate. The Division I schools, they can't go. I went and watched the ECNL showcase in Greer, South Carolina. The sideline was empty. It was myself and a couple other Division II coaches. There wasn't a coach to be seen. And that's just not fair. I mean, they're videoing the games and the people are watching, but it's different to watch a game on video and to watch a game in person. I mean, to me, it's not the same thing at all. I want to put eyes on every player that we bring in, and to not be able to do that, I think it's really unfortunate.
Can you talk about what happens on an official visit for the soccer program?
Yeah, so there's two types of visits. There's unofficial visit and there's the official visit. And the official visit is not used as much anymore because, well, at least in Division II, Division III, and you don't see them as much because that means that the school is paying money for the visit, and we just don't have budgets for that. And so, and usually that means you're paying for multiple meals, that kind of stuff. And so the official visit, at least the way a lot of the Division I schools are using them is they've already recruited the person's already committed. Now we'll bring you in and kind of have a gathering of all the recruits. It's not really part of the decision-making process, at least, the way it used to be. And so, and now with COVID, people aren't even making any visits. But like say here at the Abbey right now, we will still have an official visit if the player's going to try out with us. And because you can't do a tryout, Division II, you can do a tryout, but you can't do a tryout unless it's an official visit. So you get one official visit to that school. And so if we're training, we'll say, hey, train with us that day. And so we have to go through all the paperwork and everything to do that. But you're allowed to pay for one meal on an unofficial visit. And so it's only if you pay for the second meal, third meal, depending on how long you're staying. So we organize our trips, at least at Belmont Abbey. We do it, they're almost exclusively unofficial visits, which means that we'll pay for one meal. You're on your own dime after that. And you'll get a chance to go to classes, meet the players. You can do this a bunch of times. So usually by the time we get somebody that comes on campus to come play for us, they've already made 2, 3, 4 unofficial visits. And the goal is I want them when they come on campus now as a brand new player, a new freshman at our college, they are so comfortable when they arrive on campus, they go right by Coach Jamie and I, the coaching staff, they go right by us and they go straight to their teammates because they already feel like they belong here. They already have a team because they know the team. And so that's our goal, is to get them on campus as much as we can. So that way we know them, they know us before the decision, even after the decision. So hopefully that gave you a little background on that.
That's amazing. Of course, do you get to let them try on the jerseys on the official visit and unofficial visit?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. We haven't done that per se. It's not part of our normal protocol to do that. We'll normally talk about numbers that you're going to wear. What numbers do we have open? And it goes by date of commitment. And so if you commit early, you get your choice of number. And the only caveat to that is because we don't order brand new uniform kits in every color every year. So we order one different color per year. So provided that it fits you, but most of the players all are in a medium. There's a couple in larges, a couple in smalls, but they're all usually about mediums. And so it's not a problem, but for the most part, that's how we do the jerseys, is just, hey, you're basically picking your number. And we put a lot of stock in those numbers in that in our locker room, we basically have the alums, in each locker will be, here's the person who graduated from the Abbey program that wore number 5. And, a person, Sabrina Bologna, say 2 years ago. So she wore number 5, and you can see the years that she was there. And you can look at Jillian Lang in number 5 before that. And so, so you start looking at lockers and you can see people and you're like, wow, that person wore that jersey. That person wore that jersey, and some are highly decorated players, All-Americans, captains of the team, that kind of stuff. Some were players that never even made it to the first team. They played on the reserve team their whole career. They're all equally important to us, and they all made unbelievable contributions to our program. And again, the coaching staff, we can go through and these players are getting these numbers. This kid right here, let me tell you about her. This kid right here, let me tell you about her. And again, they're all just super kids. They're doing fantastic. They're doctors and lawyers and physical therapists and parents and same old thing that coaches talk about. It's just so exciting to see see who they go on to become, which is hopefully what we're doing here. We're not doing it just to play soccer or even just to get a degree. We're hoping to launch them on a path that they can be successful the rest of their life.
That's amazing. What advice would you have upcoming high school athletes looking to play soccer?
To me, the thing that's talked about the least is you got to be, I think, you got to love the game. You have to love the game. The question I ask every recruit that comes on campus is, do you like the idea of college soccer or do you love soccer? Because if you love soccer, the demands of college soccer, we're training in the morning, we're lifting weights, we're having meetings, we're watching film, those are all going to be exciting to you. They're going to give you energy. But if you just like the idea of college soccer, those are all things that, we have to go to weights, we have to go to video, and that's going to really, really wear. And college soccer is very demanding. It doesn't matter what school you're at, it's very demanding, which is why companies and graduate schools love to hire athletes, provided their GPA is strong enough to show that they've got the potential to learn wherever they're going. They love athletes. Well, why do they love athletes? Well, they're used to getting, pushed. They're used to working as a team. They have to get along with their teammates. And those are all things that every company desires. Those are all things that every graduate program desires. You think about bedside manner in doctors. Do you want a doctor that really wants to get to know you and care about you, or one that is just really, really smart? And certainly I want a smart doctor, but I think you know what I mean. And so I think that's why that would be the biggest thing is you got to love the game. Otherwise, continue to play, but maybe you don't want to play at the next level. The next thing is you have to embrace the process. It's your process. Your parents aren't going to come in and take your test. They're not going to go to practice or tell you, hey, you got to get to practice, or you got to embrace the process. You've got to know that this is a program you're going to thrive in. You got to ask the questions. Is this a coach that I want to play for? Is this the culture I like? Is this the playing style? And probably one of the other things that I tell them is you need to underestimate your abilities. Now that sounds kind of counterintuitive, but it always looks easier from the sidelines. I have to remember that because, I'm looking at it from the sidelines and I'm thinking, oh, why can't they do that? Why can't they do that? Well, get in the game, realize how hard it is. You forget how fast the spaces are closed and how fast the decisions are being made. And it always looks slower from the sidelines. And so if you think that you're going to be in the top half of that team, you'll probably be in the middle. If you think you're in the middle, you're probably going to be in the bottom half. And it's just, and if you think you're in the bottom half, you probably, it's just. And so you have to really kind of find a program that fits kind of where you're at, so that again you get a chance to get on the field. That's what it's all about, as far as the playing side of soccer. And I guess lastly is just and I look at I call these pitfalls, Brandon. And instead of saying what you should do, here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to pick and basically make your short list by only the division. And that is a drug that everybody gets addicted to. Their parents get addicted to it. I want to be able to talk about my kid is being recruited by school A, and it pumps you up. It makes you feel, and if you are being recruited by school A, great. I love it. Just make sure it's a good fit for you. Make sure that you can play there. Make sure they have the right academics. Make sure it's the right culture. Make sure it's a coach you want to play, all that stuff. And if it is, fantastic. But if you pick based on that, you will transfer or you'll be miserable and stop playing. I tell you, the statistic that you want to go research, and I've never got the exact number, but I know anecdotally the clubs that we recruit and those kinds of things, look at the number of players that are still playing college soccer after 2 years. The number will surprise you. It's less than 50%. Women's soccer is one of the highest transfer sports. Why? Why is that? And again, I would put it on the student athlete. They need to embrace the process and know where they're going. And if they pick just on the division, they're most likely going to fail. The other one is they pick it based on the least cost. How many things that we buy on a daily basis do we buy because it's the least expensive? Not many things. Even when it's canned pineapple at the grocery store, sometimes I go, oh, do I really want the generic or not? And sometimes I'll take that. But we understand the value of everything we do. We do it in car selection. We do it in, when we're buying, it's just, and now you want to treat your college experience as a commodity, and we're just going to pick it as the least expensive price. To me, that's one of the biggest mistakes they make. So what I advise players and their parents, really, because parents are funding them, is you need to figure out what your range is, what your maximum is. And then everything that fits that range, don't worry about if it's the most expensive, least expensive, it's in the range. Take cost off the table. Because if you do that, you will be, if you make a decision based on cost instead of the other variables, you will be miserable and you will transfer or you'll quit soccer. And the data shows that everybody is quitting and transferring. So it tells me that that's how they're making their decision. And find a school where the retention is good. Find a school where people are staying. And that speaks volumes.
That's wonderful advice. What advice would you give upcoming college coaches looking to get into the industry?
It's it's the greatest job in the world. I get to wear shorts to work, and I tell you, this sounds crazy, and I love my family. I mean, I've got a great family. We do tons of fun stuff together, but I can't wait till Monday. I can't wait. I never turn it off because I'm just thinking about soccer all the time. So when you're in a profession that is so much fun, has the potential for so much impact, I highly encourage it. If you love it, if you're a student of the game and you want to make this a profession, to me, it doesn't get any better than this. And so, but you have to cut your teeth. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that young coaches make. And that is, I want to get job A before I've really learned the profession. And then what happens is, often it's, you're in a position where you're not ready for yet. And so my advice to always is run as many training sessions as you can, which means coach a club team. So if you're an assistant at a college or you're assistant at a high school, whatever, before you become a head coach at high school or head coach at a college, then go get your own team and run sessions. It's very different when you're on the sideline, Brandon, and you're the head coach and not the assistant. And I didn't realize that until I got into the game, because as an assistant, when I was an assistant at Air Force, so I had several years of head coaching my club team, and I had a chance of being an assistant for an unbelievable high school coach when my first ride in Dayton, Ohio, Fairborn, Ohio, and so I got a chance to watch really, really good head coaches. And as I watched them, I also was, when you're not doing the talking with the team, you can watch the behavior, the nonverbals of everybody sitting there. And I would be like, God, how come coach doesn't see that? How come coach doesn't see that? Well, I quickly realized that once I became a head coach, I don't see any of that because you're thinking about what you're going to say, and you've got all these things. And so, man, when you're the assistant, you get an opportunity to really learn things. But it's different it's different once you're the head coach. And you don't want to be the head coach of a big program that you haven't already been a head coach of a club and that kind of stuff. So get as many sessions as you can, be on the sidelines. I'm in charge of making sure that the oranges are there, that the soccer balls are there, the reps are there, all those things that head coaches have to do that aren't as fun. So
that's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with Belmont Abbey soccer program at?
Yeah, so of course our college website, abbeyathletics.com. And then our social media is at Abbey Women's Soccer, so at Abbey W Soccer, and so that would be Twitter and Instagram, and we're on a Facebook page as well, Abbey Women's Soccer, and you can follow me at Abbey Coach Lynch. That's my Instagram, that's my Twitter, and so yeah, we'd love to have people follow us. It'd be great.
Thank you again, Coach Mike, for your interview, and best of luck in this upcoming season with both the men's and women's soccer.
Hey, Brandon, thank you very much for the opportunity. Really enjoyed it.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Mike, for your interview, and best of luck.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.